The Polsky Practical Personal Enrichment Series is underwritten by the Polsky Family Supporting Foundation in partnership with the Johnson County Community College Foundation, which seeks to educate and empower the public in the areas of health, financial independence, and topical issues not covered elsewhere.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Johnson County Community College and welcome to the Polsky Theater. My name is Christy McWard. I am Director of Marketing and Event Management here at the college, and it is our pleasure to have you here with us for tonight's Polsky Practical Personal Enrichment Series featuring Cara Filler, who is about to give us some straight talk about teens, choices, and safety. I can't wait for that. Cara was the keynote speaker this morning here in the Polsky Theater for our Young Women's Conference, and she spoke to a room full, imagine this room, of junior and seniors in high school, just girls. It was a great crowd. She made them laugh and cry, but also I was struck by, there were times when you could hear a pin drop in this place. And I don't know about you, but I've never been in a room full of teenage girls where you could hear a pin drop. So it was great, and I know she has a great presentation in store for us tonight. She talked to the girls today about choices and how those choices can change your life, but they also impact the lives of everyone around us and those that we love. And she talked to them about making positive choices, and what you need to do to do that is you need to be brave, and you need to treat yourself right, and you need to feel comfortable in your own skin. And what she's going to do tonight is she's going to help us reinforce all those messages at home for our teens. She knows how to talk to teens. We know how to talk to teens, we think, if we're parents of teens. They don't always listen to us. I don't know about you, but I have two teenage boys. They don't always listen, but they do listen to other people. And these girls today, they listened to Cara. They mobbed her afterwards. They loved her, and I think you're going to love her too. But before we bring her out, let me just tell you that the Polsky series was established in 1997 by the Polsky Family Supporting Foundation. Excuse me, fighting a little bit of a cold today. And it is underwritten by the Norman and Elaine Polsky Family Supporting Foundation, and it is in partnership with the JCCC Foundation here at the college. And the series seeks to educate and empower the public in areas of education, health and wellness, and financial stability. And we try to present topics that are not found elsewhere. And we are very fortunate tonight. We have members of the Polsky family here with us, and we're so happy to see them. Can you wave? And let's give them a hand for their continued support. Very briefly, I want to tell you a little bit about what is in the packets that you were handed tonight. You have a green card. The green card is for your feedback. This is really important to us. We want to hear from you. We want your opinions of tonight's presentation. We want to know what else you'd like to see. We are always planning future events, and we want to plan them for you. We want to bring in speakers that you want to hear on topics that you want to learn about. So please take a moment to fill that out. And if you provide us your email or your address, we can keep you on our list to let you know of upcoming events. And we don't use it for other things, so don't worry. You're not going to start getting a ton of mail from us. We'll just send you Polsky things. Then you also have in your packets a blue card. Now, I'll tell you about the blue card. The blue card is for your questions. Cara is going to take questions from the audience tonight. So feel free. You're going to be able to talk with her from the audience. But sometimes people have a question or two they're either not comfortable asking or they just like someone else to ask it for them. I'm happy to be that person to ask it for you. You just need to write it on a card and hand it to an usher at some point tonight during the presentation, and they'll be sure to get it to me. And if we have time after the Q&A with Cara, I'll step up here and ask a few questions, okay? So that's what these are. And tell you a little bit. Then we also have some, there are some flyers about other upcoming events at the college in your packet. I won't go through all of those, but I do want to make you aware of next month's Polsky event, November 13th. It is in honor of Veterans Day. It's part of JCCC's entire Veterans Week celebration. On November 13th, next door in Yardley Hall, we will be doing a panel presentation of Latino veterans. And there will be 6 panelists, each of whom have served in a different branch of the military in wars spanning from World War II all the way up through Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's going to be a really tremendous presentation. I hope you all can make it for that. Bring your family too. It's great for kids. Kids love that. Every November we do a Veterans Day celebration with the Polsky series, and it's great to see the families out. Other quick note on upcoming events. January 29th, we have a financial outlook presentation from financial advisor Tim Carlin. And March 27th, have you ever heard of the Mars rover project? Mars Curiosity? Yeah, it landed on Mars last year. Well, the lead engineer of the Mars rover project, Adam Stelzner, is going to be here as part of the Polsky series on March 27th of 2014, so that's going to be great. And he looks like Elvis, so an engineer who looks like Elvis, you can't miss that. Okay, let's bring out Cara, or let's bring over Cara. For more than 18 years, Cara Filler has been driven to inspire, sharing her positive prevention and leadership programs with more than 1.5 million people across the globe. She is North America's leading youth motivational speaker on traffic safety, peer pressure, and risk-taking. She's also the founder of the Drive to Save Lives tour. She delivers life-changing presentations to teens about avoiding negative risks, dealing with peer pressure, and understanding the power of choice. Her heartwarming and often hilarious presentations give young people the tools they need to stand up for themselves, for their friends, and for their beliefs, and to make positive, healthy choices. I've seen her speak to high school groups twice now, and I can tell you that you will laugh and you will cry. I hope you don't have mascara on, ladies. But her presentation will stick with you long after she leaves the stage. We are so fortunate to have her here with us tonight, all the way from Vancouver, Washington. Please help me welcome Cara Filler.
Great intro. I might live up to that. Thanks, buddy. I'm gonna use this mic. Good. Howdy. I'm so glad you guys took time out tonight to come and spend some time here at the theater. It was one of my very favorite presentations this morning with about 150 young women from the neighboring schools. I rarely get the opportunity to spend time with a bunch of girls like that. Normally it's a group assembly, guys and girls, 9th through 12th grade, 1,500 people in a room, and it was great. However, it also broke my heart. One of the schools represented here was from Shawnee West, and they have recently lost a student. And there is nothing I would want more than to be their big sister and tell them they're gonna be okay. And they sobbed. And I'm still very moved by what they said at the end of the presentation and how they knew they were gonna be okay, even though his funeral was today, and that they were gonna make it through this because they were gonna take care of each other. I think that as a community, and this is my Canadian girl in me, I think if we all cared more for each other and stuck our neck out when we knew it was the right thing to do, this world would not be in half the mess that it is currently. That's not what I'm here to talk about tonight. I'm just incredibly grateful that you took time out to spend time here. This is not the audience that really needs to hear this message. The fact that you are proactive in learning more and stretching yourself outside your comfort zone and really being active in the lives of young people in your community, yours or others, is not the people that need to hear this message. It's the ones that decided not to come tonight. So I know I am preaching to the choir tonight, but I'd still love to share my story with you. I'd love to share with you what I've seen other parents do and other community members do in other places across the country, in fact, across the globe, of really creative ways to have a conversation that isn't always easy. Talking about safety is not always easy because as a young person, most of us believe we were totally invincible. Bad things only happen to other people, and we're gonna get old like our parents. One day, we're gonna tell our kids, when we have them, how we had to walk to school barefoot in the snow 5 miles up a hill both ways, because I heard that stuff from my parents all the time. And I believed them. I believed I was gonna get old like they did. That's why as adults, we may sometimes come across like a lecture. because we want them to make good choices that get them to that point. Unfortunately, in schools not far from here, in schools across this country, some of them are not getting any older. And that's a conversation I'm willing to have with anybody that will ever listen. However, this is not what I thought I was going to do when I graduated from high school. This was not my plan. I have the privilege to speak in about 150 high schools a year in 4 countries. However, not my big plan. My big plan was I was going to graduate high school, I was going to go to college, and I was going to become a marine biologist. I basically wanted to save the beluga whales of the planet, because my favorite song when I was a little girl was a song called Baby Beluga by Raffi. I am not now, nor will I ever be a marine biologist, because I'd rather spend my time in schools like the ones the girls came from this morning, and community events just like this. What I'm gonna do tonight is I'm gonna talk about some of the choices I made growing up. I'm also going to embarrass myself tremendously because I'm just really good at it. Give you all some choices, hopefully to the parents in the room, inspire you to have a conversation about safety. The driving talk is more important than the sex talk and drug talk will ever be, because it unfortunately takes more young people away from us every year. And I'll talk a little bit about statistics. I'm not a big statistic fan. I probably have 12 PowerPoint slides in total, just because I wanted to make it look more professional. But ultimately, I do every one of these presentations from my heart. I never know what's gonna walk through the door on an open community night, and I'm just grateful that you're here. So I'm gonna start this presentation tonight the same way, regardless of my audience, that I always do. Because I'm just honestly not a very creative person, and I hadn't figured out anything else better to do. So I'm gonna ask you all politely to please close your eyes. When I said that in a high school, they all peek at each other. Adults are much better listeners. With your eyes closed, I'd like for you to imagine the most important person in your life. I am not asking you to think about someone you have never fought with or told you hate. I'm asking you to think about the person, or for you overachievers in the room, the people that mean the most to you. Could be a spouse, son or daughter, could be a best friend. For the teens in the room, young people, could be a boyfriend or a girlfriend, could be your parents. They mean so much to you. With your eyes closed, imagine what your life would be without them. You come home from work, that person isn't there to greet you, give you some big lecture about not taking the garbage out. The reason they're not there is they made a choice. That choice cost them their lives. And you will spend the rest of your life without them. With your eyes closed, while you think about the people that you care about most, just listen to this. Can you turn them?
I love you so much. Marin, I'm right here. You're gonna be fine. The ambulance is here. Don't worry. They'll get you out and I'll take you home. I'm not leaving you. Come on. No, Marin.
Please.
Her name is Cara. She's my sister. She wants to be a teacher.
No, you can't go back in there.
Tell her she's gonna be fine. Is she breathing? Is she okay?
For those of you who aren't peeking yet, you can open your eyes. There's a reason I had you close your eyes. I just wanted you to hear it. I wanted you to hear what was being said. It's a traffic safety commercial from Canada where I grew up. The very end of the commercial, on the screen, it says, "In memory of Marin Johnston, another victim of excessive speed." Every word you just heard that actress say is word for word what I said, because Marin was my sister. I watched my sister, my best friend, die in a car. What the commercial won't tell you, Marin was my big sister, my older sister, so she thought it was her God-given right to boss me around, as older siblings typically do. Marin was half an inch taller than me, and all of 39 seconds older. But it made her the older twin, therefore the one with all the power. I loved being a twin. I will always be one. But none of you and no one I meet from now on will ever have the chance to meet her. She died because she made a bad choice. Growing up a twin is a ton of fun. There might be twins in your family. Marin and I love being a twin. Identical twins. We used to play tricks on our teachers. We switched classes to write each other's tests because we looked alike. I was much better at math than she was. She was much better at English than I was. I know all the educational people in the room, the educators, I know cheating is a bad thing. But I think if you look just like someone else and you can pull that kind of stuff off, all the power to ya. We also like playing tricks on people on the phone because we sounded alike. Especially as a high school student, playing tricks on boys that would call the house. If I was dating a guy in high school, didn't want to date him anymore, I'd get my sister to break up with him because it was easier. She would just get on the phone and go, "Don't like you, bye-bye," and hang up. I wasn't the evil twin then, I didn't dump him. We also worked in the same stores together at the shopping mall, because I'm telling you, that'll creep customers out. Want us to be at the front of the store? Want us to be at the back of the store? They'd walk past Marin first and walk past me and say things like, man, you're fast. There's two things about being a twin that sucks. For anyone that has twins in your families, you will appreciate this. My mom is a twin as well. They're fraternal. I have triplet great uncles. There is a multiple birth problem in my family. It's pretty bad. But growing up a twin, there's a couple things that suck. First, you never ever get called by the right name, especially being identical. You get called the twins or something that rhymes because everyone thinks as twins your names are supposed to rhyme or start with the same letter. Or the worst of all, you get ripped off at Christmas and birthdays because your aunts and grandparents think because you're twins, you must like to share stuff. So they buy you one crappy gift and make you share it. Or they buy you the same gift, just a different color, because that's always gonna make you feel better. We were teased really badly for growing up being twins, especially identical twins, because we were different. In high school, people pick on what is not like others, what is different. Now, I today am happy I'm different. I don't wanna be like everybody else. But in high school, all we wanted was to fit in, and we just didn't, was to be accepted. We weren't. Because not only were we identical twins, we finished growing in 6th grade. We were 6 feet tall at 11 years old. That doesn't help you blend with the teachers, let alone your peers. We were actually taller than our kindergarten teacher. Can you even imagine that? Like a kindergarten teacher saying, hey, little one, paint this. Like, Marin and I grew so fast, so uncoordinated, but no matter what I did in life, no matter where I went, I always had a best friend. She happened to look just like me. I grew up in the 80s. Let's just all take a moment of silence for that. And my parents thought to help their little girls blend, they would also perm our naturally curly, crazy big hair. So there was like 2 of us running around looking like Ronald McDonald twins. Big afros, big Velcro shoes on, because all we could do was wear men's shoes, because that's all they had at the time. I hated being picked on. But no matter what, I could always count on Marin. Always. I can tell you in every audience I've ever spoken to since she passed away, the second she died, because half of me went with her. In turn, I have the half of her that's really strong, and like I said earlier, will basically stand in front of anyone, regardless if it's of an airport food court, and talk to anybody that'll listen. Marin died the day after our 18th birthday, the summer of our grad from high school. And every year since then, it's been a lot of years now, every year I celebrate, first of all, our birthday without her. The next day is the day she died. We were at the mall. Nothing ever is supposed to happen at the mall. We were at the mall having job interviews at the Disney store. We were both hired at Disney. Marin never worked there. She didn't make it home. Marin died 3 blocks from the mall. See, her new boyfriend decided to come and pick her up from the mall. New boyfriend, they've been dating a week. He was older than us, drove a beautiful black shiny sports car, suspension tightened so he can turn corners faster, T-roof radar detector, and he liked to drive fast. Who cares? He speeds. My boyfriend in high school sped all the time. So did my friends. So did my family. So did I. It was no big deal to watch her get in that car at 3:30 in the afternoon on a Monday, because it's never going to happen to us. We're supposed to be best friends forever. I grew up in Vancouver, Canada. And there'll probably be a Canadian accent pop out here and there during the presentation. I promise I won't talk about hockey all day, like I get it. But Marin and I used to see these set of twins all the time. They were the cutest set of twins on the planet. They were 2 little old lady identical twins in their 80s. They were this big. They walked around Vancouver wearing matching outfits and jackets, holding hands. Okay, they had obviously never been married, probably had more than 100 cats at home, but were best friends. Marin and I honestly believe we were gonna be just like that. Except, of course, a lot taller. That was the plan. I can tell you, and any student audience I've ever been in front of, ever had the opportunity to speak to, about all the things we will never do. But it doesn't matter. There's nothing I can say to you, or any conference, community night, school assembly I've done since Marin died is gonna change that. Marin and her boyfriend sped by me a block from the mall, and I thought it was a joke. I called him a loser and told him I would just meet them at home. I never met them at home. 3 blocks was all it took. Marin's boyfriend lost control of his car. He lost control of his car in a city street in Vancouver in a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone, traveling in excess of 110 miles an hour, more than 3 times the posted speed limit. At over 110 miles an hour, he locked up his brakes, slid more than 200 feet down the hill he was driving, facing upwards, before he crossed the median and slammed into an oncoming car coming up the hill. The point of impact was Marin's door handle. The car bent at a 90-degree angle to Marin was sitting. What chance do you think my sister had? She was wearing her seatbelt. I think sometimes that gives people a false sense of security. There were airbags in the car. At the end of the day, there's only one thing that would save my sister's life. And it's the one thing that would save the lives of teens across this country, not just teens, all of us, every single day. It's called a different choice. I watched them rip the car apart to get my sister out because I was the car behind them. There's nothing they could do for her. Marin didn't make it out of the car. The police, the firemen, the ambulance attendant's job next was to pick me up off the curb. I can't even imagine how creepy that was. Looking at the girl that just died in the car and looking at me. They stuck me in the back of an ambulance where they tied me down to a bed. At the time, I didn't even understand. I didn't understand why I was being tied down. I wasn't in the car. They strapped me to that bed because they were about to tell me the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. And it's something, unfortunately, this community has heard in the last 24 hours. I'm sorry. I'm sorry your sister didn't make it. Like, I'm sorry you're supposed to cut it? The reason I have you close your eyes, I do the same with young people, and think about people you care about. I have met incredibly nice people attached to this community, attached to this school, and as incredibly nice as they are, I'm still not gonna stand here tonight and expect you all to care about us. God forbid, though, something happens to that person or people you thought of. When you close your eyes and you hear 1,000 times over how sorry people are, does it make you feel better? It's never gonna bring them back. But unfortunately, as a society, that's the only words we have left to say. To Shawnee West, how sorry we are. I'm sorry doesn't cut it. On August 29th, the summer of our grad from high school, Marin became a statistic. The only thing she went on to accomplish with her life after she graduated from high school is being a number on a piece of paper. As adults in this community, that is the last thing we wanna see our kids and their friends have. It's being a number on a piece of paper. But behind every one of those numbers is a story just like this one. I didn't start speaking years ago wanting people to know this story. I wish with all my heart I didn't have a story. The reason I started speaking, and seriously, years later, I'm still speaking, is I'm sick and tired of car crashes being the #1 killer of youth. Nothing kills more people under the age of 25 than car crashes do. You can add up every cause of death, combine it times 4, and it doesn't even come close. But what fascinates me, we still call it a car accident. You hear it on the news, friends and family talk about it, even law enforcement still use the word accident, but you actually look at the definition of that word, it says something unpreventable, like stubbing your toe on a coffee table, tripping up a flight of stairs, falling off a stage, which unfortunately I have done more than once in front of large groups of people. That's an accident. When a plane crashes and tragically people die, we don't call it a plane accident. We lose more people under the age of 25 in one day in this country in car crashes than we do year-round, worldwide in plane crashes. And we still use the word accident because it helps us all accept the fact that it happens every day. So I have a question for you. If it happened to the person that you thought of when you closed your eyes, would you accept it? I don't. That's why I'm standing here thousands of miles away from home. But by no means did I come all this way to tell you a story. My story's over. It's not like my story or anything special. The reason this was put together tonight, I want to talk about the choices as a community, as a family, as a driver, as a passenger, you can make. There's already enough people in the lives of young people today telling them what they shouldn't do, can't do, don't do. I'm not that person. That's not my role in their lives. What I hope I instilled in the girls that were here this morning and the random young people in the room tonight is I hope that I can instill in you a sense of just this bravery in your choices. Because no one's ever gonna stand up for you like you can stand up for yourself. We talked about it at lunch. I'm so glad you came back. And I see a couple of young people in the room. She didn't get to hear the presentation this morning, but she hung out at lunchtime, and she's like, I'm coming back. And I was like, I'm so glad that you're here. So this morning, I shared with them 4 specific choices. Had my sister chosen any of those 4 choices, she would not have died, and I would not be standing here. I will run through them very quickly tonight because they are much more appropriate for young people. You will find them funny and probably a little awkward at the same time, so I hope you'll still enjoy them. The reality is my first presentation was nothing like what you're hearing right now. And probably my one this morning is nothing like what you're hearing right now, because I kind of just wing it all the time. My first presentation was 2 months after Marin died, and I stood up in front of about 100 people at my old high school. And that presentation, all I did for 15 minutes, because that's all it lasted, was bawl my eyes out hysterically. Ladies, you know that hyperventilating crying that makes no sense to anyone? That was me. But they walked up to me at the end of that presentation and told me how well I had done. Whether the young people this morning remember this message, whether the parents and community members hear something of value tonight, means Marin didn't die for nothing. If one person tonight gets something of value from this, it means Marin didn't die for nothing. That's what that means to me. But at my age now, I'm feeling way too old to tell you this story. My story's over. It's not why I'm here. This year, I celebrated, for lack of a better word, 19 years without her. And that was a big eye-opener for me. My birthday's at the end of August, and the next day is the day she died. And it was this year that I had lived without her longer than she'd been in my life. And it was a weird celebration, for lack of a better word. But I had been speaking since she died. And so this is the year I was like, man, I'm old enough to be their mom. That was a weird, like, wow, you're older than my mom. I got that comment once today. I was like, thank you. What are you supposed to say to that? That's what hair color's for. Get rid of the gray. See, I'm like a squirrel, and I start talking about something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. That'll be really great on your video, Chris. You'll like that a lot. I would love to show you, if you'll allow me, some pictures of us growing up. It's a very short little video. There are some pictures I would like to warn you about, however. There's a collection of really bad 80s pictures in here. Some bad outfits, some worse hairdos. I think most of us can walk down memory lane with that. Gentlemen in the room, when I say that, all I think about is all the dudes in this room, and I just picture you with a mullet, and it makes me happy, because everybody in the 80s rocked a mullet. It is a quality hockey haircut. There's also a little naked bum picture of me and my sisters in here. I'd like to first of all apologize in advance if that offends anyone. I would like to clarify the fact I was really, really young when that picture was taken. I don't pose like that anymore, lying naked in puddles in my backyard. It doesn't happen. But I can honestly tell you now, more than 1 million people have now seen my naked butt on screens all over the world, and I find that just terribly disturbing. But I'm sure my parents are very proud of me. There's also a picture of Marin's car crash. And I want to talk briefly after the pictures about the other victims involved, because there were other victims involved. After that, I want to talk a little bit about what the teenage brain really looks like. I'm not going to get into the science of it all. I've got a couple PowerPoint slides to talk about why students take risk. My presentation will never be about taking the risk. It will never be about taking the fun out of the equation. It is about managing risk. Nothing we do in life is without risk. It's about managing the positive and negative risks that you take in life. And as a young person, they are more prone to taking a lot more negative risks than we as grown adults take. However, that does not mean that we as adults are making great choices all the time. And I'm gonna call us out, including myself, on some of the choices we still make. And we don't know how much that puts us at risk. So I wanna show you a little video, talk a little bit about the aftermath of how this affected our family, because Marin got off easy in the grand scheme of this equation. My sister died. She didn't see what this left of our family. And for anyone that has faced loss in your family, which most of us have, it is by far not the person that passes away that deals with the grief of what that looks like. It's what's left of a family. And the families here locally, just a few in the last 5 days that are now dealing with the loss of a child, are gonna face some struggles. And we did a lot of grieving this morning, and I really hope that it helped them. So we'll do videos, we'll talk, I'll answer any questions that you might have. There's nothing off limits. The girls had incredibly funny questions today for me, and some very thoughtful, totally heartfelt questions as well, between all the tears. I really do think Kleenex should be my sponsor, because it seemed like it would be an appropriate sponsor for me. So let me start the video for you guys. I wore my really quiet shoes. Let's go.
Oh, missing you.
That's all that was left of his car. He hit a Chrysler Fifth Avenue, which is about twice the size of the car he was driving, and there were two elderly ladies in the other vehicle. They spent the next 5 months of their lives in the hospital. The driver of the bigger car now has 13 pins holding her left leg together. Her leg shattered on impact. Maren never made it out of the car, but her boyfriend did. I watched him crawl out the back hatch of his Nissan 300ZX without any help. He lost a tooth and broke his elbow. There's one word that describes why he walked away and Maren didn't. It's the same word, and I'll own it, it's the same word used to describe why I'm standing here. Maybe even why some of us are sitting here, having made the same choice as Maren did. Luck. So many people bet their lives on luck, thinking bad stuff will never happen. I hope they're right. Maren was wrong. Maren's boyfriend was given a $150 speeding ticket at the scene of the crash for going more than 3 times the posted speed limit. A year and a half after Maren died, he was finally charged with something in Canada called dangerous driving causing death. It would have been a different charge in the United States. He was sentenced to a year in jail and 5 years without his license. He spent 15 days in jail. My sister's life was worth 15 days and $150. Each and every one of our lives are worth more than that. Maren got off easy, like I said before. Maren died. Maren didn't see this destroy our family. My parents were married 22 years and Maren died, and they split up. They couldn't even stand being in the same room with each other. Almost 80% of families that lose a child end in separation or divorce. My parents were another statistic. And don't get me wrong, I love my parents. But I checked my mom into the hospital the second Christmas without Maren because my mom wanted to kill herself. She wanted to be with Maren. My dad died at 57. I'm pretty sure we call it passive suicide in our house. He couldn't protect his girls. He didn't make it past 57. There was only 3 girls in our house, no boys. We're a bit of tomboys growing up. Daddy's little girls, though. That was Daddy's favorite picture, that little naked butt picture. He was a spill response officer for the Ministry of Environment. And that was on his desk every day when he would go to work, every day. And everyone would razz him about it. He's like, those are my girls. And at 57, he checked out. And I think he died of a broken heart. That's hard to tell. At the time, I had a 16-month-old at home that I will never know his grandpa. I have one sister left. She's a younger sibling. She's only 18 months younger than us. We passed as triplets growing up. God bless my parents. Bonnie was 16 when Marin died. Bonnie dropped out of high school. Has never gone back to finish high school. When I lived in Canada still, Bonnie and I lived 15 minutes apart and we didn't even talk to each other. She wanted to have nothing to do with me. I think it's because I'm a big, overprotective bag. I wear that badge proudly. My husband calls me safety spaz. I think he means that in a loving way. I want my sister to be safe. I want everybody to be safe. But specifically my sister, Bonnie, doesn't make the best choices. If I ever have to stand up and deliver the eulogy of the only sibling I have left, I finally realized something in all this. I can't make choices for anybody but me. Here are 4 choices for the young people in the room to pick from. Now, I'm gonna share them very quickly. Normally, I go into actions and funny stories about them all. They're called the 4 choices. Option number 1 is about taking the risk out of the equation in the first place. This is about not putting yourself in a car with someone you know drives like that. There's always another way to the party. There's always another way to school, work, a sporting event. You don't need to put yourself at risk. I hear that excuse a lot from students that live in small towns. Well, I didn't have another way to get there. I've spoken at schools where their entire school, K to 12, kindergarten through senior class, was 28 people. Their whole grad class was one dude. Can you even imagine the rockin' grad party he had by himself? He might be able to pull off that excuse. There's not a school within an hour's drive of here that doesn't have other options to get around. And that goes for all of us as adults as well. You know somebody's been drinking at your Christmas party, at your work? You do not need to ride with them to get a ride home. There's a cab. There is your spouse. There's your parents. There's a bus. You can crawl there if you have to. I don't care. Just don't put yourself at risk in the first place. That's the easiest way to make sure we're safe. It's probably one of the easiest ways. Now, I'm not talking that life without risk would be all that exciting. Like, life without risk would be really boring, especially for young people. I don't inspire them to like sit in their house under their blankets for the rest of their life because the world is too big of a scary place and they don't want to put themselves at risk. They have to take risks. That's how they learn. That's how you learned. But there are risks they don't need to take, and that's one of them. Option number 2 is about, what if you already found yourself in a car driven by someone who shouldn't be driving? It's really simple. Get out of the car. Most important part, always make it stop first. That is an important traffic safety decision. Now, stop, drop, and roll is for fire safety only. Please don't use that move either. You gotta speak up for yourself. And that doesn't matter your age. That is a young person, that is a spouse, you must speak up for yourself. If somebody's driving in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, you gotta say something. No one's a mind reader. They don't know what you want unless you tell them. Now, option number 2 is also about sticking your neck out for other people. It's about hiding the car keys from uncle who is obviously drunk at your Christmas party at your house, and he wants to drive himself home. Hide the car keys. My favorite place in the whole house to hide the car keys is the toilet. Nobody looks there. I'm not talking about the bowl that spins around. I'm talking about the tank. Lift the tank, throw all the keys in the tank. Just remember, clickers are not waterproof. Please put them in Ziploc bags first before you throw the keys in the toilet, because if you don't, that'll be a nice, expensive learning opportunity for you. I had to replace 5 of them in one night at a party. Option number 3, and I always have such a fear of sharing this at a community night because there's so many parents staring at me right now. Option number 3 is about lying. I teach all of your young people how to lie, lie, lie. Now, I don't call it a lie because that sounds terrible. I call it a fib because it doesn't sound so bad. They don't lie in high school. No. They are masters of the fib. They fib about why their homework's not done, why they're late for school. And parents, just so you know, they lie about where they really are on weekends. I don't know if you ever did that when you were growing up. It's about lying to make sure they're safe. Any lie that makes somebody safe is a good lie. So they're called the 3 Ps for easy reference. The girls nearly fell out of their chairs today when I went this far because there's a line of totally inappropriate in life, and I like to dance on it just a little bit. I don't cross it, I just dance on it. 3 Ps, pee, puke, and period. All 3 of those things will make a car stop immediately. A room full of girls just love that third excuse. I was like, say, uh-oh, I'm bleeding all over your seat. There's no dude on the planet that's not gonna stop the car. kick you out. I don't care if it's your dad or a boyfriend or grandpa. They will not want to deal with you in any way, shape, or form. They will stop the car. They will let you out. That actually went better in this group than normally does in a parents' night, so I'm glad that you laugh with me. It's like, I really hate sharing this, but I want to, because there's teens in the room that need to know that. Like, you need to lie. If you need to lie to get out of the car safely, that means you're safe and you're home. Option number 4 has always been and will always be about a young person picking up the phone and calling you. It will always be that. I don't care how many times I tell this presentation or say this presentation, it's about picking up the phone and calling you for a ride home. I hope you will answer that phone. My mom did. My mom growing up was always on the receiving end of that call. Now, we were really good kids. We were involved in a lot of sports. We didn't make a lot of bad choices until later in life. I made plenty growing up, but it was a little later after Marin died that I was like, just gonna go out and live life. But mom was always on the receiving end of that phone call. Always. She'd pick up the phone, she'd put her little fuzzy slippers on, hop in the minivan, drive out to pick us up. And it wasn't just me, it was my friends who couldn't call their parents. And so my friends would call my mom, and my mom would pick them all up. And it got into our 20s when I didn't even live in Canada anymore, and my friends were still calling my mom at 25 years old, asking for a ride and a trip to Burger King, and she would get in the car, and she would drive, and she would go pick them up at a quarter of a century old, and drive them home and make sure they were safe and tuck them in. And the day that happened for me, where it all switched, was the day my mom called me, and I was in Canada, and she called me, and she was with her twin sister. And they were at a restaurant drinking something called a fish bowl. I'm not sure anything with the word fish bowl and 2 straws should be on a menu. And she called me, and she started singing Tom Jones songs to me in the phone. I think, does Tom Jones sing Dankeschön? That's what she was singing. That's all she kept singing, Dankeschön, which I think is thank you in Danish. Is it? Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, she's singing at the top of her lungs, asking for a ride home, and I just smiled, and I got in the car. Didn't have fuzzy slippers, but I got in the car, and I drove out and picked her and her twin sister up from the fishbowl experience. And I was like, man, I'm so glad that my mom instilled in me that she would always pick up that phone. Always. No questions asked. That didn't mean I was off scot-free, and I'm going to talk about that. I've seen some really creative parenting. Some incredibly creative parenting over the years, and my mom was definitely one of them. However, through the years doing this, I've seen some really cool ideas. Let's talk about why teens take risk first, and then we'll wrap it up with some other funny stories. I love that you're laughing with me. It makes me feel better. So, this is what a teen brain looks like. Ta-da! I can go into all the prefrontal cortex talk I want, but this is really what they think about. Depending on girls or boys, that front area is bigger in boys than girls. But the love for parent, hate for parent, I love the peer pressure resistance on the far right side over there. Like, that's how they resist peer pressure, that tiny little thing. Because they want to be accepted, they want to be appreciated, they want to fit in. And they will do anything at any cost to do that. So that's what a teenage brain really looks like. This is why they take risk. This generation of young people is motivated by right here, right now. They will do their homework for $5 tonight, if you bribe them, over $50 next week. Even though they know $50 is way more money, but they want it right now. And it's because of this instant access to everything. Instant access, and I find that it is causing some major communication issues with how people communicate face-to-face because of this instant access to stuff. However, this is how they are blogging, texting, iChat, Snapchat, which is my mortal enemy currently, video games, iPods, like it's just, nobody wants to build a fort with a big box refrigerator anymore. Nobody wants to do that. My son will, because that's his only option. However, it's not like people are motivated by that anymore, where they really want to work hard to earn something. They want it right now. And this is part of the reason. It's the generation. It's how we've grown up, or how they are growing up right now. So they want this instant gratification. I'm going to probably say a lot of the slides, so this will be a lot of like $5 tonight instead of $50 next week. So risk-taking, it's about positive and negative risks. So it's about exploring adult behavior. It's about really putting themselves out there, trying to prove something to their friends. It's also about accomplishing tasks. That's why we take risks, is That's how they learn to walk. That's how they learn to ride a bike. So just being a young person, a teenager, they still need to take those risks. We cannot have them live in a big old bubble and protect them. As much as a parent, that's all we want for our kids. We want to make sure they're safe all the time. We can't take the risk out of the equation for them. They have to manage that risk. So the risk taking, here's some really quick statistics, some that are more shocking to me than others. 3 million teens will contract sexually transmitted diseases this year alone. And that's the United States only. That's not worldwide. And what I find is shocking to me, I was gonna put a whole bunch of traffic safety statistics up here, but you see a lot of those in commercials for Allstate or State Farm or Kansas Department of Transportation. It's eye-opening to me. The one I'm scared most about is like 15% of teens are problem gamblers by the time they're 12 years old. And that's part of the access to online gambling. They can pretend they're something they're not. Just like signing up for social media. There's 10-year-olds that have social media accounts, and 10-year-olds that are online gambling pretend they're 18 and like work for Microsoft. Like they literally make up these fake personalities online. That's shocking to me. So more than twice as likely, my big one right now is you're 23 times more likely to be involved in a crash if you're on the phone while driving, not just texting, but physically on the phone. You're 23 times more likely to be involved in a crash. That doesn't mean people in my family do not talk on their phone while they drive, sometimes even read their emails. I'll tell you about him in a little bit, because he's not here to defend himself. I love my husband, but. So why do they do it? They want to, it's impulsive, it's part of growing up, they see their peers doing it, they take risks, and some of those risks are substance abuse, some of those risks are underage drinking, being really, like just going against the grain with what their parents want for them. And having that conversation open and honestly with your kids is really hard to do because they are still your children. Sometimes it's easier to have that conversation with your kids' friends than it is your own because you don't necessarily want to know what they're up to. Be a positive role model. Provide, research shows really clear, defined rules are incredibly important. And it's clear rules and enforcing those rules, and we're going to talk about them. So teens raised in a positive environment with a positive influence obviously do better in school, have lower rates of depression and stress, less likely to engage in real risky behaviors. There's still risk in everything. Have better social skills, are more respectful, deal with better conflict. So parent first, friend second. I see a lot of parents in this country that want so badly to be appreciated and loved by their kids that they're willing to be like, oh, I'll drive you to pick you up beer, and their kid's 16. Or you can have a party at my house with no concept of what social host liability looks like for their state, and the fact that it can cost you everything if you have a party at your house and something happens tragically. And it's not just the driving away from your house. It's like if a kid fell down the stairs and you were serving alcohol to them, you could lose everything. So there are parents that really want so badly, and a lot of young parents that still want to have that joie de vivre and like this, I was young once, I did all this and I'm okay. It's so incredibly important that you be a parent first. Now there are rules in our house that were meant to be broken and rules that were not. And it wasn't broken, it was rules that were meant to be bent and rules that were meant not to be. And so your rules, the ones that have anything to do with your family values or their safety has nothing to do with being bent. This is the rule, this is how I enforce it. The rules that are meant to be bent are the ones that have to do with curfew, or in our house, that's how it was. Things that don't cost them safety or go against your family values. So I'll give you an example of that. Involve your teen in making those rules up. That's the best thing you can do, is involve your teen in that conversation. That conversation of like, here's the rules that are gonna happen for your junior year of high school. And this is what I wanna talk about. This is how I want you to be with your friends. This is the respect you have earned from us, and we will give you respect in return. So, but the key is, as I said, enforce them. So here's a story about meanest mom on the planet. I love this story. I normally read the actual article, but I'll give you the paraphrase of it. It's a mom from Des Moines, Iowa, and she sold her kid's car in the newspaper because he broke the rules. However, she didn't just sell it, she placed an entire page ad about the experience in the newspaper that read something like this: meanest mom on the planet selling teen's car or son's car because parents who obviously don't love teenage son found booze under the front seat. Please call meanest mom on the planet, who obviously needs to get a life, $3,700 your best offer. And she got like 150 phone calls from people that just wanted to congratulate her for being a really responsible parent. There was emergency room technicians, a lawyer, some random dude from Georgia that just want to say, good girl, like random. But there was also, there was nobody that said, you're really strict, lady, you need to get a life. So obviously the only critic in the whole thing is her son, who is obviously very upset by the whole experience. Because he said to his mom, Mom, the booze wasn't mine, it was left by a passenger. Here's the part of the story I want you to get. She set 2 rules. She believes her son, the booze wasn't his, it was left by a passenger. She set 2 rules when she bought that kid the car. No booze and always wear your seatbelt. She found booze in the car. She sold the car for an undisclosed amount of money and continued to run the entire page ad in the Des Moines Register for 2 more weeks just for the feedback. But she set 2 rules, and those rules weren't, well, just you, but also your friends. She found booze, she sold the car. And I was like, good girl. I don't know if my husband believes this or not. He says it all the time that he believes we will not allow our son to drive till he's 40 because I will be driving him everywhere because it's such a big, scary world. But if he earns that right and follows the rules, he's allowed to have a car. He's allowed to drive his friends around when he's of age and when he's passed his license and his graduate licensing program and all that stuff. I speak a lot in Australia. They have a 5-year licensing program in Australia. You're not allowed to get your driver's license till you're 18. And then for 5 years, you have restrictions the whole process. For the first 2 years, you can't drive with other people in the car other than family. So they have an incredibly strong graduate licensing system. I don't know how strong the one is here in Kansas. I live in Washington State. It is really strong. But in Canada, where I grew up, it's even worse. So I think it's important. But the more legal rules and the laws and the fines, it's still not going to change behavior. The behavior will change when we all stand up in a community and say, it's enough. And we start to own those choices for us. I'm not gonna tell you I'm the best driver in the world. I mean, Budget Rent-A-Car gave me a lime green Mustang as a rental car for this week. I was like, do you know you're giving a Mustang with a Hemi in it to the worst girl on the entire planet to be driving it? Because it's not like I'm gonna use it. I'm like driving like this with my Mustang that like, vroom, as I drive past everybody. I was like, seriously, what is that about? But what I can tell you is I own my choices. My husband doesn't text behind the wheel, but he reads his emails behind the wheel because he thinks there's a difference. And I look at him like, of all the things I teach all over the world, how can you physically be reading your email in the car while I'm in the car? That doesn't mean I don't say things. I say things until I'm almost blue in the face. He's like, but it's different. I'm not texting. I'm just reading. I was like, it's not different. That doesn't mean, however, that I don't look at my phone sometimes to see my Google Maps or I hear the buzz and I'm like, oh, no, I can't do that. It's important as adults. We don't just blame kids for the bad drivers on the road. They have inexperience. They don't have as much experience as us, but we have to own those choices too. There is not a Facebook update, a text message, or an email worth dying for. And we as a community need to put those phones down. Australia forbids it from being in the car completely. Like they've gone that far now. So, meanest mom on the planet, I love her example. My parents had another creative way. This is another for the parents in the room. We had a grounding free day every 6 months. And we were allowed to sit at the dining room table. It was always pizza night. We didn't have a lot of pizza growing up, so it was pizza and pop night. Soda. I think you guys call it soda. Pop. Pop, yeah! That makes me so happy. People are like, pop? What is that? So we would sit every 6 months at the dining room table, all 3 of us girls and our parents. And we, as high school kids, were allowed to rat ourselves out for everything we had done for the last 6 months and not get grounded for it. And we saved those up for our 6 months so we could sit at the dining room table and just rat ourselves out. Just lay it all out like, Mom, I told you I was at the amusement park, but I really took a ferry to Victoria and I hung out with people I didn't even know. And she's like, okay, what else? And we were allowed to rat ourselves out. Well, my friends got wind of that every 6 months we had a grounding free day. And then my friends started coming over and inviting themselves over for pizza. And they would sit at the dining room table. And at one point, there was 12 girls around the dining room table. Only 3 of them belonged to my parents. And they were like, okay, Mom, I need to tell you this because I need to tell somebody. And it became grounding free day for like this group of girls every 6 months of like, we could get it off our chest. Our parents wanted to know what we were up to. And we could just like have an open conversation about, did you know you were at risk? I'm like, yes, I did, but it all turned out okay. She's like, I know. I was like, I don't know how my mom bit her tongue through most of that. But it's a very creative way to make sure that as a parent, I can't wait to have grounding free day with Jackson. He's still too young for that, but I can't wait to have that conversation and let his friends be part of that as well, because I do want to know what he's up to. I want him to always feel like he can talk to me about anything, regardless of the fact that I might not want to hear it. I still want him to be there to be able to talk about it. And that's our goal. We want those young people to still be able to have that conversation, not be like Shawnee West today, where they celebrated his life at a funeral because something tragic happened at their school. And that is an example of no fault of his own. It's not something that caused that to happen, but it's still a loss that school will feel. And we'll bring that school closer together. I mean, we talked about it today, but it still shouldn't have happened. And unfortunately, I've never been to a school that hadn't had a loss. I've been to schools that have lost lots. So grounding free day was our house, a little secret. There's a couple others. Bluefish. So we had a code word in our house. And that code word was to be spoken if we needed to call my mom or my dad and say, I need help, I need a ride. And our code word was bluefish. So if we were in an uncomfortable situation, we could be, without saying all the details about it on the phone, we could just say bluefish, and my mom knew what needed to happen. She's like, okay, where are you? And she would come get us. Now, we fished a lot in our family, so it was something about a fish. It can be spatula. I don't care what your special word is. It can just be something that you know and they know is, I need your help, and I need your help now. I'm not sure how to deal with this process or this situation that I'm in. It might not even be a risky situation. It's like, I just don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. And they can call you about it. So it can be a code word that works for your family. I don't know why I threw spatula out there, but whatever. So it's about having a plan ahead, but being part of that conversation will help you have that open dialogue. It's like, okay, what do you want your code word to be? So I know what you need from me to be able to support you. So having a game plan, how teens can bail out of unsafe situations, talk with them, act out scenarios with your teen in advance. I'm a strong believer in if you act something out in a funny way, they are more likely to remember it. So as much as role playing is not something you necessarily or your teen wants to do necessarily with you, but if you do it in a funny way, like my dad, I can't believe I'm gonna tell you this because I don't think I've ever said this out loud, is my dad dressed in like a loincloth, like leopard print, and like put a fake bone through his nose and like had a big bamboo stick and like came into the living room to have some family discussion with us. And of course we paid attention. We were horrified, but we paid attention. I was like, I'm not sure why you're wearing that, nor do I even wanna know. But it was super funny, and I still remember it to this day, and it was probably 25 years ago. So and I told this to the girls today that were incredibly moved and sad, that if you can find something every day to be grateful for and find something that makes you laugh, you will make it through any tough situation you ever face in life. It's not always easy. And in high school, I think sometimes as young people, we create more drama than that is necessary. Just inherently being a teenager creates a lot of drama. But if you can find something to be grateful for, it can be Pop-Tarts. If you got nothing else to be grateful for, pick something little. And if you can find something that makes you laugh, all those girls today are gonna be just okay. They're gonna be fine. They don't know that necessarily, but if they can do that every day consciously, that's the only reason I'm still alive, is every day, still to this day, I find something grateful for, and I find something that makes me laugh. And there was a lot to laugh about today. So, have a family code. Don't be afraid to talk about the tough stuff in life. So the myth is talking about tobacco use, drinking alcohol, drug abuse, sexual activity, violence, dangerous and impaired driving. I would throw texting in that. The myth is talking about those things don't make people more prone to do them. And we talked about that today. Suicide became a topic of conversation today with a room full of girls. And they're like, I just can't accept it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I was like, talking about it, or you know your friend is facing this, you know that your friend is struggling, talking about those things do not make people more likely to do them. It allows them the space to be able to be open and share. And the best thing we can ever be for our students, for our teens, for our young people in our lives is a good listener. Sometimes you have to ask open-ended questions to make them talk to you, but at the end of the day, the best thing you can ever do for a young person is just be a good listener. So the myth is, now, I'm a very proud Canadian girl. I threw some Canadian jabs at hockey and a few things tonight. But the reality is, I moved to the States 9 years ago because I fell in love with a Midwest boy. You grow really tall boys in the Midwest, and I'm incredibly grateful. My husband's from North Dakota originally. I would still call that the Midwest. Why not, my not? That's where he grew up. And he's 6'5". His name is Jason. I'm a very lucky girl. The girls were all excited to find out where we met and what our story was. And it was really funny today during Q&A. They're like, do you know any celebrities? Like, it was really sweet. They were incredibly thoughtful girls. I hope that they stay in touch. And Jason, my husband, is incredibly, I throw him under the bus a little bit about his reading of emails, but he's a big supporter of what I am able to do. My husband works from home. He didn't always. He got laid off but decided he's like, I'm gonna work from home and I'm gonna make it. And he did. He's an incredibly successful guy as an entrepreneur, and he can be there to coach basketball and pick Jackson up from school. And I try not to travel as much now. I used to travel far more. And there's gonna come a day really soon I can't do this anymore. I've missed the first t-ball game. I've missed the first school play. And I talk about Jackson like you all know him. He's 8 years old. He is now in 2nd grade. He just started 2nd grade this year. And he is probably the world's cutest 8-year-old. I know I'm probably slightly biased. I'm his mom. Of course, I think he's gorgeous. He could look like a troll, and I would not know the difference. He's not a troll. Although some student at a high school in West Virginia called him a troll, and I just cried for 10 minutes. It was brutal. I was like, he called my kid a troll. The principal of that school, after it happened, levitated across the audience and grabbed him. It was not a pretty sight. I just bawled for 10 minutes. Some girl in the 5th row was like, you got this, girl? And I'm like, no, I don't. It's terrible. It was the first time as a parent in this room, it was the first time ever that anybody had ever made fun of my kid. And I lost it. I think now I could probably hold myself better together, but that one was not good. So Jackson's in 2nd grade. The beginning of 2nd grade in September, they had to get him a bigger desk because he doesn't fit under the desk the other 2nd graders fit under. Not kidding. It's a desk that's got like extension legs. Is to get a bigger desk, because my 8-year-old son, Jackson, is already 5'2". Yeah. The challenge with that is people think he's 12, and Jackson thinks he's a dinosaur. So he runs around growling at everybody, and people are confused by that. I get a lot of this all the time. Wow, he's so special. He is, he's only 8. Give him a break. He's my screensaver. I'm super homesick. We've, okay, I probably shouldn't even say this. We have a 13-year-old chocolate lab who almost didn't make it through the night last night, and I'm not there. And I'm hoping she makes it till I get home tomorrow, but Jackson's really sad. So I see him on Skype every day. I would like to show you a picture of my giant troll, not looking like kid. He doesn't look like a troll. And I just want to share that part of my life with you. So students always giggle because they secretly hope he looks like a troll when I say that, but he doesn't. There he is. So Batman's mine, Riddler isn't mine. Riddler is Jackson's best friend, and they are the same age. That's why I love this picture so much. They are inseparable little buddies. I say little because I don't really have another word for that. They're in the same 2nd grade class together, and they've been friends for 3 years now, 3 or 4. They were all Batman characters. I love Halloween. I am counting down the days. There has not been a Halloween my whole life that I have not dressed up for. My poor husband did not know what he was signing up for when he married me. I'm a safety spaz, and I'm a Halloween girl. The year before this, we were The Incredibles as a family. It's a Disney movie about superheroes. I was Elastigirl. My husband was Mr. Incredible, which means, yes, when I got married, I started dressing my husband up in red spandex, and he can't say anything about it. Jackson was Dash. So I love Halloween so much. All of his buddies, there's 5 boys in our cul-de-sac. 5. They're all about the same age. It is the best setup ever. It was the best summer ever. They just moved in. They're his best friends. Riddler, his mom is my best friend, and they bought the house next door to us. And I was like, I'm never moving because this is the best setup ever. However, they all want to be ninjas. I have a different plan because that's how I roll. I would like for Jackson and his little best friend, Cal, to be Austin Powers and Mini-Me. That's what I'd really like. $1 million. Because I just think the photo op for that would be priceless. And one day I can use that over his head for his high school graduation pictures. So the reason I bring my family up is although I think it's funny that I might, in fact, have a Guinness Book of World Records for the largest 8-year-old on the planet, I don't bring it up because of that. When I walked down the aisle, there was only one person that was supposed to be there. And she was supposed to be my maid of honor, and she wasn't. And I look at my gorgeous, huge kid every day. He was supposed to grow up in a world that knew his Auntie Marin. He's not going to. I don't want you memories of your friends like this, and I don't want you memories of your kids like this. Because there's nothing I can say, think, or do that's gonna bring my sister back. This presentation has never been complicated. I think we overcomplicate so much in life. This presentation today is not about young people taking the risk or taking the fun out of the equation. It's about all of us in a community having a good time safely and sticking our neck out when we know it's right. I know as a young person in the room, I talked about this earlier, it's not always easy to stick your neck out, and it's not always popular, but it's the right thing to do. And with some age and experience, sometimes it's easier for us to speak up when we know it's right. That doesn't mean we do it all the time. If you have people in your lives that you know take risks, the myth is talking about it is not gonna make them take more risk. I ask you to have conversations with them where they know how you feel. Because if you don't say anything, they will never know how that affects you. My husband had a drinking problem when we met, and he kind of hid it while he was on the road a lot from me because he would travel 3 or 4 days a week. So I didn't see it as much as I probably could have. I was a little oblivious, probably. I'm gonna just own that. My dad died, and that was the first person my husband had ever lost that was really close to him. And he was closer to my dad than he is with his own dad, by far, much closer. And my dad died so unexpectedly, and my husband didn't know how to cope. He'd never lost somebody close to him, and the drinking got worse. And it got really bad, and we had a baby at home, and I was like, I can't make anybody make good choices. They need to make it and want it for themselves. Jackson was 16 months when my husband checked himself into rehab, and he hasn't touched a drop of alcohol since, but he had to do it for himself. He couldn't do it for me. He couldn't do it for Jackson. And all the young people in this community have to realize they are the only ones that own that power. The only ones that own the power to change the course of their life by making better choices than they currently are. I have a belief that all the students I saw today were already making good choices. They could make more good choices, but they were already making some. And the reality is, as sad as it was to spend time with students that felt grief so strongly today because of such a recent tragedy, I've never been to school that hasn't lost a student. I have never done a presentation in a community, a school gymnasium, a theater, that there wasn't already somebody in that room that already knows what it felt like to lose somebody cared about. There's somebody right now sitting in this room tonight that knows what it feels like to lose somebody you cared about. And all I have to say to you is how sorry I am. I've been to schools that lost 8 students in 12 months in separate car crashes. There's no big enough Band-Aid on the planet to make that feel better. I've done some tough presentations a week after suicide, a week after a car wreck, 4 days after the loss of a student. But the hardest assembly I've ever done was at a school called Buchanan Upshur High School. They buried 4 girls in a car before I got there. It happened over prom weekend. In the beginning of the next school year, around homecoming, they brought me in to speak. Their student body was 1,100 students in total. They all packed an auditorium, and their assembly should have been proudly sponsored by Kleenex. Everybody sobbed. The students, the staff, the speaker. I'm a bit of a crier. I had a senior walk up to me at the end of the presentation, and he waited till everybody had left. He probably waited 25 or 30 minutes to talk to me in private, and he walks up to me, "Hi, my name's Josh." "Hey, Josh, I'm Cara, nice to meet you." Josh was wearing a Letterman jacket, big old Letterman jacket. I'm guessing he was a football player. He was a big dude. And he stood in front of me and he burst into tears. I don't know about you, but I see a guy cry, I lose it. And all I wanted to do was make his pain go away. I couldn't. Josh was and his boyfriend. Anna had died in the car. They'd been dating since freshman year of high school. She should have been a senior. She wasn't there. Josh told me about his girlfriend and the other girls that died in the car, and he stood in front of me, this big, strong guy, and he just shook to the point where I thought he was gonna fall over. And I just wanted to take his pain away. I couldn't. He was fidgeting with a rubber bracelet on his wrist, one of those rubber bracelets. It was the color of their school, white and blue. It said, "In loving memory, the date of the crash, the names of all 4 girls that died." Anna's name was on it. He got Anna's funeral. He'd been wearing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And he took it off his wrist and he handed it to me. He wanted me to have it. because something I said that day made him hurt a little less. Josh had a lot of guilt. There's a lot of students in this room today that had a lot of guilt too. Josh had been in the same party the girls had been at. So had 40 of their friends. Everybody knew those girls should not have driven home, and nobody stopped them because they all believed it was going to happen to somebody else. Speed, alcohol, lack of seatbelts were the reason those girls didn't make it home. Like I told the young people today, sticking your neck out isn't always easy or popular, but it's the right thing to do. Because there's not a parent in this room that ever wants the knock at the door in the middle of the night and a police officer at the door. I've had the privilege to work with law enforcement all over the world. People ask me all the time why I didn't become a cop. One reason, because I never want to be the one that stands at your door and tells you your kids aren't coming home. Somebody had to tell my parents. That's their job. The reality is, it's going to come a day really soon I can't do this anymore. I don't know when that day comes, but today, tonight, I hope that one person got something of value from this presentation. Because I can go sit in a hotel room tonight. I'm actually not in a hotel, which is random. My friends that I know, they have little babies at home. They live in Overland Park. I didn't know how close that was to here, so I'm staying with them tonight, and I just keep biting their baby. I actually don't bite him, I just want to chew on him. Because that's what you do with 10-month-old babies. You just want to chew on them. The moms are like, yes, you do. The guys are like, please don't bite the baby. Don't bite the babies. So I get to hang out with them tonight. She teaches Zumba. She's 20 weeks pregnant with her second baby. And she taught Zumba last night at Lifetime Fitness. And I went, and I was like, man, if she can do this 20 weeks pregnant, I got no excuses. And at the end of it, I was like, I don't work out much. I basically spend my time on airplanes and at school assemblies. I hope you guys found some value in tonight. Ultimately, what you do in your life has no reflection on what I shared with you tonight. It's all about what you focus on. There were some girls today that were incredibly upset. And all I could tell them is, you decide how this makes you feel. And that goes for everything in our lives. I love what I do, but the day that comes when I just want to be a mom and I stay home, that's okay with me too. I'm gonna be a crazy mom. I'm gonna be that mom in a high school basketball game in the bleachers with a giant baby picture of my kid on a sweatshirt yelling at the ref. I'm gonna be that mom. I just wanna see him grow bigger and be with his friends and take care of each other. When people ask my son what mommy does for work, there was a day, I don't know if you guys have them here, where you can bring your kid to school day if he can, or bring your kid to work day and take a day off school if he can tell the teacher what his parents do. So I was like, what does mommy do? And he's like, well, mommy talks at schools about making good choices. I was like, you got it, buddy. And he's also a bit of a backseat driver. I'm very proud of him. I go, what does daddy do for work? And he said, straight face, well, daddy sits at the computer in his pajama pants and talks to some guy named Dennis, who's my husband's web designer. But that's what he does on Skype in his pajama pants. I was like, you're right, you get to have the day off school, buddy. That's what daddy does for work. I have met some great people here in Kansas. I hope I get the opportunity to come back. I know some of the schools are already trying to figure out how I can come back during prom season for them. I have seen some friends who I've not seen in a very long time. Maria is the SAD state coordinator for Kansas for SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions. It's a national organization. I am also the proud state coordinator for 2 states on the West Coast, Washington and Oregon State. And it's nice to see you, Maria. You do great work here in Kansas, and I will do whatever I need to support you. I've met some great people here at the college. I hope that you had some fun with me tonight. Does anybody have any questions for me? I don't know that anybody ever wants to be the first person to ask, but there is nothing off topic for me that I will not try to answer for you. I don't pretend to be an expert at all things traffic safety related and or the laws here in Kansas, but I know enough to be dangerous, so bring it. Other questions? Anybody want to know anything? No? You got a question?
I was curious when you said, I think it was Australia, that their driving age doesn't start until 20.
It starts at 18 and they go 5 years on a graduated licensing system.
Significantly different.
Yeah, they have a much lower rate of crashes than we do. They also have much higher expectations on what that means to actually get your license to get your permit in the first place, and much stiffer laws on distractions in the car, for sure. So I don't know that we'll ever get there, but there are still states that don't have graduated licensing systems and or they give licenses at 14, which I have a huge problem with. I know some 40-year-old dudes that shouldn't have driver's license, so no offense to the gentleman in the room, but it's a matter of maturity and responsibility. And I think they can feel like they're mature enough, but the responsibility is where we're lacking. Is that it's not just about responsibility to yourself, it's responsibility to the peers in the car and the people on the other side of this line. That's what it's about. It's about the other side of this line. So we have to have a responsibility to all of them. So, you have questions? Sure. Yeah. Go.
I do have friends that wanted to come tonight but couldn't. Are you on YouTube?
Oh, so here's what's great. They recorded all of this. I'm hoping they edit out the part where I'm like, squirrel, and I start talking about something random. Hope they edit that out. You got that? Don't put that squirrel comment in there. Or that talk about that inappropriate line that I did. There's also a bunch of YouTube videos. If you want to see me act out the 3 Ps, which is probably the high school student's favorite part of my whole talk, that's on YouTube. You can just type my name in and do YouTube. All my contact details are right here. So if you want to talk, or I can support your schools in your communities in some way, or you have questions specifically that you don't want to ask in front of everybody else, that's my contact details right there. I've already tweeted about the experience today. I will tweet again tonight. This is a really good turnout for community night. I've done them where there was 8 people in the room and all 8 of them were people that brought me to the school. So there's times when it's not a great turnout. I'm just grateful that you're here tonight. So go ahead, I'll come right back to you. Go ahead.
2 questions.
Sure.
We have a program here where 14-year-olds can get like a learner's permit.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thought on that? And then is there a driver's school or program that you recommend?
So nationally, I don't know if there's a lot of driver programs that are at a national level. I think that you have to do your due diligence in a driver's program. I don't think 14-year-olds should have a license at all, regardless of the farm license that, like, North Dakota is a prime example. I don't know Kansas all that well, so I'll use North Dakota as an example for that. My husband grew up in North Dakota. They're allowed to get their license at 14. That means 7th and 8th graders are driving cars, and that scares me. The brain is not fully developed till 25, so we can't wait till they're 25 to actually give them responsibility. They have to learn that. But the reality is, people that live in smaller towns, like North Dakota, where there is a lot of road between towns, those young people at 14 and 15 don't think they will ever get caught for their behavior, ever, because there's not enough law enforcement to enforce it. So, and I'm using North Dakota. You can take what you want out of that for Kansas, but there's a lot of that, well, I'm never gonna get caught anyway. And the challenge with that is, if there's everything that happened that was wrong, they aren't gonna get saved either. And that happened at a school in North Dakota. I spoke very soon after the crash, and 4 girls skipped out of school. They were all 14. They were 8th graders. One of them had a license. And they drove away at a skip hour, and they rolled it on gravel, and 2 girls were ejected and died. One had to walk to get help with a broken back. They were 14 years old, and nobody knew where they were. They were supposed to be at school. So I think that is too young. That is my personal opinion. There may be 14-year-olds that have the responsibility and the mental capacity to take that and own it. My best friend, Allie, who is Cal's mom, also has an older son who's just about to turn 10, and I swear he's a 10-year-old, and it's like a 29-year-old in a 10-year-old's body. Like, I would bet money that by 14 or 15, he would be ready for the responsibility. He is a rule follower. He would be ready for that. But there's lots that are not. And there's lots of girls that are not either. I use guys as an example of testosterone is the most powerful drug on the planet. It makes guys do weird things in high school and beyond, especially high school and college. Testosterone gives them a false sense of security about, like, I'm gonna take risks and it's all gonna be okay. Sports, and or risk-taking. My sister's boyfriend didn't leave the house expecting to kill his new girlfriend that day, but a choice he did because of the testosterone, because he never thought it was gonna be him. So as far as driving, I think the most important thing as a parent we can do is be part of that driving process, not just leverage it off to somebody else, although that will give you a lot less gray hair if you let somebody else teach your kid how to drive, but the best role model they have for their driving behaviors is us, because they've been watching us since they could barely talk. And that's seatbelts, that's on the phone. I hope that if any of your kids saw me speak this morning, that they come home and ask you they want to be your designated texter. They want you to hand the phone over as a passenger, they become your designated texter. so that you aren't the one putting everybody at risk without even really realizing we're doing it. So I think there's some great accredited driving schools. I don't know enough about Kansas to be able to tell you what that is, because there's not really a national one that I would suggest. But I think it's important that you be part of that process, not just a driving school. So, any other questions? You had a question. So I think they've done great, made great strides in safety. However, there's a few things that if I had someone from car dealerships or car manufacturers sitting in my audience, that I would like to discuss with them. One of them is not allowing a car to drive 190 miles an hour. There's no point in that. We don't live by the Autobahn, and even the Autobahn, 60% of it has a speed limit anyway. So people always throw that at me. They're like, well, you can drive as fast as you want on the Autobahn. Well, 60% of it has a speed limit, and their process of getting a license is harder there. I had one conversation with a guy from Chrysler. I was like, I know that there's something that exists that's called a speed limiter. It costs 39 cents to put on a car at the manufacturer level, not aftermarket. At the manufacturer level, it's like 39 cents. And it would allow a parent who bought a kid a car to limit the speed of which that car could travel. And I think every car manufacturer should offer that to a parent as a aftermarket add-on to a car, like at a car dealership. If it costs 39 cents to offer it, plus whatever the labor is, I, as a parent buying a son or daughter a car, would love the opportunity to be like, I want that on the car. So there's other things you can install in cars that track their location, track their speed, shut off their phone. I mean, there's tons of that now. It didn't exist years ago. So they earn the right. They say they're going to and from school, and you find out they went like 35 miles out of the way to go to Sonic Burger or whatever. They can earn that right, and it tracks and it emails you when they break the rules. So you set the rules with them. It'll email if they're going 15 miles over the speed limit or 10 miles over the speed limit. I think those are great tools. I don't think they're the be-all, end-all yet. There's still some conversations I'd like to have with car manufacturers. I'm not sure they always like to have conversations with me. So the best part of being passionate about traffic safety and being self-employed is there's a lot of times I can have conversations that people that work for the government and or organizations that maybe can't say it. So I think that's a great conversation. I haven't fought that battle yet, but I one day may fight that battle, especially when Jackson gets of age. So right now he's 8. I think he's pretty protected, although he was out of his car seat like he was 3. So, which is hard because they don't make car seats big enough for like 100-pound 3-year-olds. So you had a question, honey.
On that note, are there certain cars that you find are safer?
There's certain cars I wouldn't buy. I don't know. I think that anything with a side impact airbag now is really important. I think all kids should learn how to drive on a stick. I don't think there's hardly any of them sold anymore, but I think the actual way stick shift drives is really important to learn how to do it. Because I think that we are like, well, now cars can back themselves up into parking spots. And so how are we learning how to deal with that? So a prime example of that is my friend that I'm staying with. She is Jeep Commander, I think it is. I would not buy one. I had a Jeep in high school. I would never buy one again. They're very top heavy. Kids drive them really fast and they roll a lot. People can't believe as a safety spaz I had a Jeep, but it was prior. She drives Jeep Commander, and it's got one of those key fobs, like remote starts, and the plastic hinge on the front of it broke inside and now she can't start her car. Like, she can't even get the thing to turn on. So we had to cab it back to her house, get my crazy lime green Mustang, drive to her, like, we had to, like, do all this jockeying because she can't get the car to start. So there's cars I wouldn't buy. I would never give a student a car that is huge in size. The difference of size in a crash is what causes the amount of injuries. So it's a Suburban meets a smart car. No matter how safe a smart car may be, if you battle a Suburban, you will not win. It's just like driving in northern Canada. If you hit a moose, the moose is always gonna win. No matter what size car you're driving, the moose will win. So I prefer cars to be, at that age, smaller because they need to, kids that drive like Hummers and big SUVs, I think it allows them to pack too many kids in the car, and that is a huge problem. There's been schools where I've spoken to where 10 kids were in a car and 5 of them were ejected because nobody had seatbelts on. So I think that if you give them the space, they will pack it full of people. So don't give them the space, buy them a Corolla. or whatever. That is not a Toyota, although Toyota supports SAD, but I don't drive a Corolla. So, other questions? Do you want to read some more? Sure. And I never know what I'm going to get for questions, so just bear with me. I'll do the best I can to provide the answers that you're looking for. But again, sometimes I just wing it. Go ahead.
Okay. Here's a question from a parent of a 15-year-old freshman.
Okay.
Our son will not open up and share with us about anything. We so much want a relationship with him, but all we get is anger and disrespect. How can we get him to share with us, share his life with us?
If it was my 15-year-old, I would find some common ground of what he loves. That doesn't mean you have to love. Like, if he's into rap music and you don't like rap music, that doesn't mean you have to start wearing a big gold chain and pretending you're a rapper. Like, and that's not the rapport I'm looking for. What I would try to do is find something that he does really love and talk about that to start a conversation. So it's not easy. Hormones and high school, especially men, young men that aren't comfortable with talking and sharing their emotion or even having an open conversation is tough. I don't have a big talker. Jackson's not a big talker. Mommy gets paid to talk. So it's interesting in my house to like find a happy medium of like, how was your day? He's like, good. It's already started. He's 8. It's like, how was your day? Good. What'd you learn? Stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great when he's in high school and I wanna really know what he's up to. But finding common ground is the only words of encouragement that I would have in that, is find something that he's really into and talk about that. Or provide ways for you to do that together, and maybe then there'll be some more open communication. The disrespect thing, I think, is because, I don't know if I'm gonna mess up anybody's feelings and hear about this, but the disrespect comes from a lack of respect at school and a lack of discipline, that we all are getting in trouble for disciplining our kids, and so are teachers. And I think that if there was a little more, kids will be like, well, you can't talk to me like that. I've seen it in schools where they say that directly to the teacher. You can't say that to me. Yes, you can. For 8 hours a day, you're my kid, and I'm gonna talk to you like that because you are showing me no respect. So I think that as a generation, our whole generation has a lot less respect than it should. I don't have all the answers how to fix that, other than we gotta stand our ground and we gotta say, this is the rules and this is how we enforce it. And don't be afraid to enforce it. Some of that though is enforcing it in a way that might mean you kick your 18-year-old kid out, but they broke the rules. And you, as a parent, have to have rules that protect your values as a family, and as a person, that you don't get walked on. So my parents had rules that I did not love all the time. And when I broke them, there was consequences to those, to breaking that rule. So I hope that was a little helpful. Find some common ground in that.
Okay, well, speaking of your family, here's a question. How did your family interact with your sister's boyfriend after the crash?
That is a great question. We have never spoken to him. They'd only been dating a week. He was a very new addition to our family. And I talked about Aspen, our big chocolate lab, and I'm a big animal lover. Those SPCA commercials, I just sob like a crazy person every time those sad little dogs are on TV. It's terrible, and I know it. The dog next door to us growing up was half wolf, half husky, and he was this big, black, furry thing with one brown eye, one blue eye, like literally looked like a black bear. He was so fuzzy. And the first day that Marin's new boyfriend ever came over to the house, that dog tried to climb the fence and eat him. And I'd never seen, there were babies at that house, and I'd never seen that dog aggressive in any way. And that dog literally tried to climb a fence and eat Marin's new boyfriend. And I think that may have been a sign. I didn't see it at the time. We've seen him twice since Marin died. I've actually seen him 3 times now over the years, but twice originally. Once at court when he was sentenced, and once 4 or 5 years after Marin died. And I saw him at the movie theaters. And he was standing in line to buy popcorn, and he saw me, and I looked just like her. And he ran for the door as fast as his little legs would go. I, of course, being the common, sensible person that I am, chased him out the door. I'd always wanted to ask him why he never apologized. He's never said he was sorry to my family. He's never apologized because he honestly believes it wasn't his fault. He blames the car. Somehow the car fell apart. And I think the reason he blames the car is so he can live with himself. So there's 2 reasons I've never spoken to him. The first is he's never said he was sorry. The second, and I'm going to be brutally honest, if I hadn't already been that way, the first couple of months, all I could think about was the many creative ways I was going to hurt him. People ask me all the time if I've forgiven him. Of course I have. That doesn't mean I want to have barbecues with him on a weekend. His new girlfriend at the time of sentencing was pregnant. It took 1.5 years for it to go to court. And she was pregnant with their first child. I don't even know if they're together anymore. And the judge heard stories from the defense lawyer about how he didn't want to miss the birth of his son. And I was like, Marin's never going to have any kids. So I was not a fan to begin with. I'm indifferent to it now because that's something he's going to have to live with for the rest of his life. So his son now would be of driving age. It was that long ago. And I think about the responsibility I hope he instilled in his son when he taught his kid how to drive. And how, I wonder if he's even shared that story with his son. They live in a different province now to my family. I don't think about him often. Every once in a while I'll see somebody who has a similar name. It's likely not him, and I think about it. But I find joy in the littlest things every day since my sister died. I met the man of my dreams. I have the world's cutest 8-year-old. I'm able to stand up here tonight and share this story with all of you, and I would have none of that had my sister not passed away. I would have led a very different life. Some people today were asking about how they cope or how they get beyond the loss or grief of losing somebody they cared about. And I said, you gotta look for the signs because they're talking to you anyway. And I don't know what you believe, we're not gonna get into all that, but I still see signs from her all the time. And I find dimes. I don't know why it's dimes. I would prefer $20 bills. But I find dimes, and my mom finds dimes, and now my friends find dimes. And my mom bought a car because there was a dime in the trunk. I found a dime in a microwave. Money's not supposed to be in a microwave, but it was there. I found a Canadian dime in the Hong Kong airport, and all it does is make me smile. Here we go. The end of the presentation today, this morning, I had an advisor. I'm guessing she's an advisor. I don't know if she was related to the college or she had come with the school, and she lost her son 14 months ago. And she finds pennies. And she came up to me, and she's bawling, and I was like, it's okay. And I told her how sorry I was for her loss, and she goes, I found a dime this morning on the ground outside of my car. And it was a Canadian dime. And she goes, I don't know why I picked it up. I don't know why I was so compelled. And I was like, I know why you did. I find the smallest joys in so much. I could be a very different person. I could have chosen to quit a long time ago. And I can't tell you, standing up here, that I didn't want to, because I didn't know how to live my life without her. But I chose not to. And I hope that if you find things in your life that are such a struggle, that you don't choose to quit either. I hope that you find joy in the little things, and I hope that you find joy in each other, and that you every day consciously make choices for yourselves, for your family, for your beliefs, for the people that you care about. And you all one day sit on a porch, take your teeth out of your mouth, stick them in a cup, and tell your great-grandkids how hard you had it. That ultimately is my goal. But I'll never know because all of your names will never be a number on a piece of paper. And I hope that every day, that your name will never be a number on a piece of paper. Other questions?
Cara, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was beautiful. I'm sorry, everyone, we didn't pass out Kleenex to you when you came in, but everyone give her a hand.
Thanks.